This is the stimulus update. A lot of new and exciting things happen. I'm going to share with you. I'm going to talk about how people were able to receive their checks in their account, even though the US government didn't actually send them yet. Talking about the new IRS portal that crashed a few times and how to set up your direct deposit. So first, let's start with all the confusion that's going on with people who actually received $1,200 in their bank account. Did it come from the government? Did the government underpromise and overdeliver for once? No, that's not the case. This is probably one of the most genius marketing schemes out of this whole pandemic. Digital banks such as Chime, Current, and a few others have fronted their own money to give to their hundreds of thousands of customers so that they could have a $1,200 stimulus check. They obviously saw that these customers had a pending transaction from the IRS, that of the $1,200 or whatever the amount was, going into their account. So the banks used their own money to put it into their account. Because as we all know, some of the checks or some of the direct deposits might have been sent out April 9th, 10th, but they're not going to hit the bank accounts until April 14th. The digital banks already knew that the money was coming, so they just gave up their own money. Some were just $200 advances, some were $1,200. So that's how people are claiming that the money already hit their bank account. Other banks such as Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all those are probably going to get the direct deposit checks on April 14th or later. So with people claiming that they got their $1,200 check, there is some truth to it. Does it matter where the money came from? No, it doesn't. But as long as they got their $1,200 to use it for essentials with surviving through this whole pandemic, that's all that matters. For the rest of Americans receiving the direct deposit that it was already sent, we can see that in their bank account it has a pending transaction, which means that the money is on its way. Just like with most direct deposits, it doesn't always come instant. Moving on, let's talk about the new IRS portal that came out April 10th. Crashed a few times because of millions of Americans trying to get on the site and put in their information. Just to be clear, this is for non-filers. Very similar to what TurboTax set up. If you did not do it with TurboTax and you wanted to wait for the IRS, that's fine as well. They both pretty much do the same thing if you are not filing, if you're a non-filer. But if you already use the portal through TurboTax, you do not need to do the IRS as well. Only choose one of those. It could probably cause some complications if you try to do both, so just one will do. Just to be clear, this is different than the Get My Payment tool, which is going to come out next week. They're saying April 17th is when it's going to come, and that's where you could adjust and provide your banking information so you could receive your stimulus check via direct deposit. Now that hasn't been set up yet. I'm sure once that launches, it's going to crash as well a few times during the day, which is expected, and it's almost unavoidable at this point. First, let's talk about this IRS portal. So if we go to the site here, let me make myself small. So this is for non-filers. As you see here, the three main requirements: social security number, you can't be a dependent, and your income has to be below those requirements. So guys, you got to keep in mind that this is only for a select few amount of people. If we scroll down here, the two main requirements, I'm going to highlight it: had a gross income that does not exceed $12,200 or $24,400 for married couples just for 2019, or were not otherwise required to file a federal income tax return for 2019 and didn't plan to. What this means is that if you filed your taxes, so as you see here, this is for non-filers. If you filed your taxes 2018, 2019, this does not concern you at all. This isn't the Get My Payment tool that's going to be for a much broader amount of Americans. This is for a smaller group, as I mentioned before, what the requirements are. So not much more needs to be said about this. If you want the information on this, it pretty much has it laid out on this page. There'll be a link down in the description below. Pretty much it says who is this for, who is this not for, what information you need to move forward. So they do a really good job of laying it out. There shouldn't be any confusion here. Next update, let's move on. Big question here: is it too late to provide your banking information if you did not file for 2018, 2019? That's a big question I'm getting. It's not too late. They are still sending out direct deposits and will for a while. I'll go over the updated timeline of paper checks and everything like that, even though it didn't change too much. That'll be later on in the video. All right, one popular question that I get asked a lot, and I just want to address it now. I know it may seem simple, but just want to put it out there. Will your $1,200 stimulus check be taxed? no, it will not be taxed. So all of your money, whether it's from the unemployment, the $600, or your stimulus check with, extra $500 per dependent, you will not be taxed on that money that you receive from the IRS. If you're not planning on getting a direct deposit, let's go over the paper check delivery dates and the timeline for that. It hasn't changed much, but if you are not doing direct deposit, then you will receive your paper check April 24th if you make $10,000 or less. If you make $10,001 to $20,000, then you'll receive it the following week, May 1st, and then week by week in $10,000 increments, and this will be 20 weeks. So they're planning on doing $5 million paper checks, or 5 million checks every single week for 20 weeks. So that'll be 5 months, and then the last checks will go out on September 11th of 2020. Unfortunately, at this time, there's no way to actually track whether or not your check is coming. Like there's no login where you can see if the paper check is on the way or the direct deposit is on the way. After you receive your check, so if they mail it to you, then you're gonna get a letter from the IRS 15 days later notifying you that you received your paper check. One thing I wanna mention is to be really careful during this waiting period if you're waiting for a paper check, because this is when a lot of scammers are going to provide you letters that look like the IRS asking for information, especially if you haven't received it yet. Let's just remember, this is the government. Things don't always happen as fast as Chime or other digital banking or fintech companies. We got a big, bulky organization sending out millions of checks and millions of dollars to a lot of different Americans, so this might take a little longer than expected. If you want to watch more updates on what's going on with the stimulus checks and when they're coming, you could click this link over here or this one down here, and I'll see you in the next video.